Hey everybody, Dr. Chris Perron here. Just wanted to give a quick update because some really interesting information I thought came out in the last few days that I wanted to share with you in case you missed it. I think it's pretty positive as far as helping us get a continuing better handle on what's going on coronavirus-wise and help you to hopefully feel better and to know what kind of action to take, again, is what my goal is because of that information. So a couple studies or statistical things came through in the last couple days. Like I said, New York did a huge study, 1,300 patients that were admitted to hospitals, over 100 hospitals in New York across the state. And they wanted to know what had these people been doing. So they were admitted for coronavirus, of course. And they found that 2/3 of them actually had been staying at home as instructed, and obviously appropriate for them. They were doing what they were told. Nothing wrong with that. But it was interesting that 2/3, and out of that 2/3, over 90% of them actually had barely even gone for a walk, if at all. So like really staying at home and not even grocery store runs and so forth. Another 20% were coming from nursing homes and a few other odds and ends. But again, like about 90% of the people had actually had nothing to do with being out and about, is what it comes down to. Obviously it's logical as far as passing and being out and about, so it was an interesting study, and again, that's why I wanted to share it with you. You can check out Governor Cuomo's press conference, I believe yesterday, if it wasn't yesterday, it was the day before, where he went over all of this. And so what does that mean? That means being outside really is good. And again, the basic logic that was initially intended, but it was basic logic. Now we have more information to change to what reality is. Being outside, fresh air, being around, it's good for us. We want to get out. You need to get out. I can only imagine some of these folks, especially if they were barely leaving their house at all, were probably pretty stressed about it too, and understandably so. So you have stay at home, less activity, stress, not the best combination for health. Not that they had any better options, obviously. So not blaming, just highlighting, a reality. And so trying to learn from it. So what I want to share that with you all for is, if you're in the high risk group, it just keeps getting confirmed again and again and again that 90+% and like mid 90s all have comorbidities, meaning number one is hypertension, high blood pressure. Number two is diabetes. From Italy a couple months ago through now, nothing's really changed in that. So that's pretty solidly confirmed. So if you fall in that category, then yes, you obviously want to be extra careful. If you basically live with or interact with somebody in that category, obviously, yes, you also want to be extra careful and so forth. But for everybody else, one, personal fear, different than not wanting to share with somebody else. So we separate the two. Personal fear of what happens if you get it, there honestly shouldn't be much for most of you. And then step two is, how do we help each other? That's the one that's up in the air right now as far as debate, and I'm sure you guys have all heard it and seen it plenty. I know I have. And my reality is that herd immunity really is the key. How do you do it safely, though? It's basically the way humanity continues to exist on the planet, let alone any other animal, is that we adapt to our environments. It's not that long ago the term superbug, if you guys haven't forgotten about that, due to the overuse of antibiotics, which they've cut back on the last few years, which is good. But bugs are going to mutate. They're going to figure out how do they survive, because you know what? We're both doing the same thing. They are and we are. So healthy people, if you kind of come in contact with stuff, then there's no place for it to go. And then therefore the people in the high risk group, they're not going to it's not going to be around as much due to that. Because again, just avoiding viruses, it doesn't do anything. Just logically, it doesn't do anything. It's to slow the pace so hospitals weren't overwhelmed, and that's been accomplished, and it is being accomplished, and obviously we want to continue to stay in that state, but all good stuff. My goal with sharing any of this with you all is that I want to take fear and panic potentially that goes with it and turn it into knowledgeable decisions. Fear is good. Fear means pay attention. Obviously we should all be paying attention. Next, it's like gather information. Good information, solid backing, and that's hard to come by with a lot of information out there right now. So that's what I'm hoping to pass along with you all. The last thing is diet and exercise. If you have hypertension, if you have diabetes, You don't have to. I'm not saying it's an easy, quick flip of a switch to get back on the other side of that fence, but they're not permanent, and they're generally self-inflicted to some extent. Not a knock, just a truth. And I mean that in an empowering way, that it's also a choice to work back in the other direction. And the way health works is we're not healthy or unhealthy. We're somewhere on a scale of health, right? So perfection, well, that's nice. Say you're perfect one day. Well, you ain't gonna stay there. You're gonna bob around. So the same thing applies with any illness of sorts. So diabetes, it's not like you have it or you don't. It's like, to what depth do you have it? Hypertension, same thing. It's like, to what depth? We can all work on being healthier, and it's exercise and diet, generally speaking, that was going to influence those two things to basically maybe make the hypertension less of a factor, and then, maybe move on to where you don't have it. Diabetes, same thing. It's a scaled thing. It's not one way or the other, black and white. It's a gray spectrum that you can live within. So I hope this is actually a big wake-up call to people with hypertension, people with diabetes, because it's so common, and it's taken for granted, I feel, just because it is common. Common doesn't mean good. And hopefully it's a wake-up call to maybe step up and start working on ourselves. Best time to work on ourselves was 10 years ago. Next best time is now. So try to get out. There's plenty of open space. You don't need to be within 6 feet of people. I wholly recommend that part still, for sure. But you can be out and you can be doing things, and you can breathe fresh air without a mask. Stay 6 feet plus away. Easy place, flat surfaces to go and take a walk would be, honest to goodness, school parking lots, church parking lots. Big parking lots, and nobody's using them, and nobody's probably going to be using them for a few more weeks at minimum. So go and take advantage. There's a place to walk if you live in a hilly area, or a place that doesn't have smaller paths. Maybe you might bump into more people. So there's really no reason we can't get out and do healthy things, and our actions are what guide us. So hopefully that was a little extra insight that you may not have caught, and hopefully it makes you feel a little better, more empowered because of what you know. And everybody continue to stay safe, and happy to help you out. Take care. Have a good weekend.